Meta abandons the metaverse after $70 billion loss. An explosion rocks the GTA 6 studio. OpenAI launches a budget ChatGPT plan, changing AI access for millions. Plus, AI now generates images in under a second, and the US-China AI race intensifies. We've got tons more exciting tech updates coming, so stick around till the end. I'll break down everything. Let's jump in. Alright, let's kick things off with what might be one of the biggest tech failures in history. Meta, the company formerly known as Facebook, is essentially pulling the plug on the metaverse. And when I say this is a massive failure, I'm talking about a $70 to $80 billion disaster. Here's the backstory. Back in 2021, Mark Zuckerberg was so confident about the metaverse that he literally renamed his entire company from Facebook to Meta. He called it the successor to the mobile internet and said Meta would be metaverse first. The hype was insane. Investment firms were calling it a $1 trillion opportunity. Even Barbados opened an embassy in one of these virtual worlds. Fast forward to now, and it's a complete mess. Meta's Reality Labs division, which handles all the metaverse stuff, has lost over $70 billion since 2021. That's not a typo. $70 billion gone. And what did they get for all that money? A virtual world called Horizon Worlds that at one point had only about 200,000 monthly users. For context, Roblox has over 150 million daily users. The problems were obvious from the start. Remember when Zuckerberg posted that selfie of his avatar in front of the Eiffel Tower? It looked like a video game from 2005. The graphics were terrible, the avatars didn't even have legs for the longest time, and nobody could figure out why they'd want to have a business meeting as a cartoon character wearing a bulky VR headset instead of just using Zoom. Now Meta is slashing the metaverse budget by up to 30%. They're laying off about 1,500 employees, that's 10% of the Reality Labs workforce. They're shutting down VR game studios, cancelling advanced headset development, and basically redirecting everything toward AI and smart glasses instead. And honestly, this makes total sense. While Meta was burning billions trying to convince people to live in virtual reality, OpenAI dropped ChatGPT and kicked off the actual AI revolution. Meta got caught completely off guard and has been playing catch-up ever since. The irony is that Meta's Ray-Ban smart glasses, which are AI-powered and work in the real world, have actually been successful, selling over 2 million units. So the lesson here is pretty clear. People want AI that enhances their real life, not a second life in a virtual cartoon world. My take? This was always doomed to fail. The metaverse wasn't solving any real problem that people actually had. Nobody was asking for this. It was a solution looking for a problem, and Meta spent $70 billion figuring that out. That money could have gone into AI research, where Meta is now desperately trying to compete. Moving on to something way more practical. Manus, the AI startup that was recently acquired by Meta for over $2 billion, just dropped a feature called Meeting Minutes, and it's actually really clever. Here's what it does. You tap a button and it records your in-person meetings with automatic transcription. But here's where it gets interesting. It doesn't just transcribe. It uses intelligent speaker recognition to identify who said what, pulls out key points, identifies action items, and assigns tasks to specific people. But the coolest part? You can then use those meeting notes as the starting point to create actual deliverables, presentations, websites, social media posts, all within the same workflow. So you go from having a conversation to having a finished slide deck or landing page without switching platforms. And get this, it works offline. If your internet drops during the recording, it keeps going and syncs everything when you're back online. That's a nice touch that shows they actually thought about real-world use cases. The timing is interesting too. Meta acquired Manus just last month for over $2 billion, and Manus had been growing like crazy. They hit $100 million in annual revenue just 8 months after launching in March 2025. They've processed 147 trillion tokens, which is just insane. The Meeting Minutes feature is available to all Manus users right now, and it's designed specifically for in-person meetings, not online ones. This is smart because tools like Otter.ai already handle online meetings pretty well. But capturing and acting on in-person conversations? That's been messy for everyone. Meta's clearly planning to integrate this into WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook eventually. Imagine having this built into WhatsApp business meetings or Instagram creator collaborations. That could be huge. I think this is way more useful than anything Meta tried to do with the metaverse. It solves a real problem. We've all been in meetings where someone says, "I'll send you that document," and then nobody remembers who was supposed to do what. This actually addresses that. Alright, this next story is for anyone who's into AI image generation. Black Forest Labs just dropped Flux.2 client, and this thing is ridiculously fast. Black Forest Labs is the German AI startup founded by the same people who created Stable Diffusion. They've been on a roll lately, and Klein is their most impressive release yet. It can generate or edit high-quality AI images in under half a second on modern hardware. On an NVIDIA GB200, we're talking sub-second generation. Even on regular consumer GPUs like an RTX 3090 or 4070, it's incredibly fast. They achieve this through something called distillation. Basically, they took their larger, more complex model and taught a smaller, more efficient one to approximate its outputs in fewer steps. The Klein models only need 4 steps to generate an image compared to 20 or 50 steps for some other models. There are 2 versions, a 4 billion parameter model and a 9 billion parameter model. The 4B version is released under an Apache 2.0 license, which means anyone can use it commercially for free. No royalties, no restrictions. That's huge for developers and businesses. The 9B version is under a non-commercial license for now. What's really cool is that Flux.2 client combines 3 capabilities in one model: text-to-image generation, image editing, and multi-reference generation, where you can combine elements from multiple input images. Historically, these required separate tools or complex setups, but Klein handles all of it in one package. The practical applications are serious. You can create 50 different ad variations using the exact same product or person, and the product stays accurate while the background changes. You can drop a product into any scene, a beach, a city street, a studio table, and it looks natural. For designers and content creators who need to iterate quickly, this is a game changer. Black Forest Labs also just raised a $300 million Series B round in December, pushing their valuation to $3.25 billion. They're clearly positioning themselves as the open source alternative to Midjourney and the other closed models. My opinion? The speed is what matters here. When image generation becomes near instantaneous, it changes the workflow completely. Instead of generating an image, waiting, checking it, then trying again, you can now iterate in real time. It becomes more like sketching or brainstorming. That's when AI tools actually enhance creativity instead of just being a novelty. OpenAI just made a move that's going to put ChatGPT in the hands of millions more people. They've launched ChatGPT Go globally, a new subscription tier that costs just $8 a month in the US with localized pricing in other markets. ChatGPT Go first launched in India back in August 2025 as a test, and it blew up. It expanded to 170 countries and became OpenAI's fastest growing plan. So now they're making it available everywhere ChatGPT is available. Here's what you get for $8 a month. Access to GPT 5.2 Instant, which is their latest fast model designed for everyday tasks. You get 10 times more messages than the free tier, 10 times more file uploads, 10 times more image creation, longer memory so ChatGPT remembers more from your conversations, and a bigger context window. To put this in perspective, ChatGPT now has 3 main subscription tiers. The free tier is still free. ChatGPT Go is $8 and gives you way more usage. ChatGPT Plus is $20 and gives you access to the deeper reasoning models like GPT 5.2 thinking, plus the coding agent. And ChatGPT Pro is $200 for power users who need maximum everything. Now here's the catch, and this is important. OpenAI announced they're going to start testing ads on ChatGPT, specifically on the free tier and ChatGPT Go. So if you're paying $8 a month, you'll still see ads. The ads will appear at the bottom of responses when there's a relevant sponsored product or service. They'll be clearly labeled, separated from the actual AI response, and you can dismiss them. OpenAI says they won't show ads to users under 18, won't show ads about sensitive topics like health or politics, and won't use your conversation data to train models or sell to advertisers. Plus, Pro, Business, and Enterprise will stay ad-free. My take on this? The $8 tier makes sense. The gap between free and $20 was too big for a lot of people, especially in markets where $20 a month is actually significant money. $8 is that sweet spot where it feels affordable for most people who use ChatGPT regularly. But the ads? I'm conflicted. On one hand, I get it. OpenAI is burning cash like crazy. They need $1.4 trillion in infrastructure investment over the next 8 years. That's not sustainable on subscriptions alone. On the other hand, the whole appeal of ChatGPT has been that it gives you objective, helpful answers. Introducing ads changes that dynamic, even if they promise the ads won't influence responses. We'll see how this plays out. If the ads are actually relevant and not intrusive, it might work. But if they're annoying or feel like they're compromising the experience, people will push back hard. This story is fascinating from a strategic perspective. Reports came out that OpenAI made a conscious decision to sit out the deal with Apple to power Siri. And this tells us a lot about where OpenAI sees the market going. For context, Apple has been looking to upgrade Siri with more advanced AI capabilities. They've been in talks with multiple AI companies, and eventually they went with a different approach, Apple Intelligence, which uses on-device AI plus partnerships with various providers. OpenAI had the chance to be Siri's backend, but they turned it down. Why? Because it would have meant giving Apple too much control over their technology and potentially limiting how they could develop and deploy their models in the future. Think about it from OpenAI's perspective. If they become the engine behind Siri, they are essentially locked into Apple's ecosystem and Apple's rules. Apple would have enormous leverage over pricing, features, and roadmap, and OpenAI would be helping Apple compete with them on AI. Instead, OpenAI decided to focus on building their own consumer products and partnerships where they maintain more control. They have integration with Apple through Apple Intelligence, but it's on OpenAI's terms. Users can choose to use ChatGPT rather than ChatGPT being buried inside Siri. This is a bet that maintaining independence is more valuable long-term than securing a massive distribution deal. It's the same bet Google made when they turned down deals that would have compromised their core business. I think OpenAI made the right call here. Being the AI behind Siri might have looked good in the short term, but it would have constrained their ability to innovate and compete. They are betting that ChatGPT as a standalone brand and product is more valuable than being invisible infrastructure for Apple. OpenAI also just launched ChatGPT Translate, and this is potentially huge for breaking down language barriers globally. While specific details are still emerging, the concept is straightforward. It's a dedicated translation feature built into ChatGPT that leverages their language models for more contextual, nuanced translation than traditional tools. What makes this different from Google Translate or DeepL? Large language models like GPT understand context, idioms, cultural references, and tone in ways that traditional translation systems don't. So instead of just doing word for word or phrase for phrase translation, ChatGPT Translate can capture the actual meaning and intent behind what someone is saying. For example, if you translate business correspondence, it can understand formal versus casual tone. If you translate creative writing, it can preserve literary devices. If you translate technical documentation, it can maintain precision while making it readable. The timing is interesting because Google just launched Translate Gemma, which we'll talk about in a minute. So we're seeing a translation war heating up between the major AI companies. I think this is going to be one of those features that becomes essential over time. As AI models get better at understanding language, translation becomes less about converting words and more about conveying meaning across cultures. That's where the real value is. DeepSeek, the Chinese AI company that shocked everyone with their efficient models, reportedly had to fall back on NVIDIA chips for their newest model despite US export restrictions. Here's the context. The US has been restricting exports of advanced AI chips to China to slow down their AI development. These restrictions target chips like NVIDIA's H100 and A100, which are the workhorses of AI training. Chinese companies have been trying to work around this by using older chips, developing their own chips, or finding creative ways to get restricted hardware. DeepSeek made headlines because they claim to train competitive models using less powerful, non-restricted chips. But now reports are saying that for their latest model, they needed to use NVIDIA's advanced chips after all. This suggests that there's a ceiling to how far you can go with inferior hardware. At some point, if you want to train cutting-edge models that can compete globally, you need the best chips available. This is significant because it shows the US chip restrictions are having some effect. But it's also a reminder that restrictions aren't perfect. Chips are still getting to China through various channels, and Chinese companies are getting more sophisticated at working around limitations. The broader picture here is that AI is becoming a critical geopolitical battleground. Whoever controls the most advanced AI has significant economic and strategic advantages. The US wants to maintain its lead, China wants to close the gap, and the semiconductor industry is caught in the middle. My view? These restrictions are a temporary measure at best. China is investing massive resources into developing their own semiconductor industry. They might be a few years behind now, but that gap is closing. In the long run, this chip war is going to accelerate China's push for self-sufficiency, which might not be the outcome the US wants. Elon Musk just did what Elon Musk does. He went bigger than anyone thought possible. xAI has brought online the Colossus.2 AI training cluster, which is a 1 gigawatt facility. To put that in perspective, that's enough power to run a small city. This is the follow-up to the original Colossus cluster that xAI launched earlier, and it's specifically designed to train Grok, xAI's AI model that competes with ChatGPT and Claude. 1 gigawatt is an insane amount of power. For comparison, a large data center might use 50 to 100 megawatts. Colossus 2 is using 10 to 20 times that. This reflects how compute-intensive AI training has become. Training cutting-edge models requires thousands of GPUs running simultaneously for weeks or months, and that consumes enormous amounts of electricity. This is part of a broader trend. OpenAI, Google, Meta, and the other AI leaders are all building massive training clusters. The arms race in AI is partially an arms race in compute infrastructure. Whoever can train the biggest models fastest has a competitive advantage. But it's also raising serious questions about energy consumption. AI training is becoming one of the fastest growing sources of electricity demand globally. Some estimates say AI could consume 5% of global electricity by 2030. That's creating concerns about grid capacity and environmental impact. Musk has said that energy will be the limiting factor in AI development, and he's clearly putting his money where his mouth is. If you can't get enough power to train your models, you can't compete. My take? This is both impressive and concerning. Impressive because of the engineering required to build something like this. Concerning because we need to be thinking seriously about the sustainability of AI development. If AI is going to consume this much energy, we better make sure we're getting proportional value out of it. Demis Hassabis, the CEO of Google DeepMind, just issued a stark warning. China is only months behind in the AI race, not years like many people assume. This is a big deal because the prevailing narrative in the West has been that the US has a commanding lead in AI and China is playing catch-up. But Hassabis is saying the gap is much smaller than people think. China has been investing aggressively in AI. Companies like DeepSeek, Alibaba, ByteDance, and others have been developing competitive models. They have access to massive amounts of data, top-tier research talent, and significant government support. The main constraint has been access to cutting-edge chips due to US export restrictions. But as we discussed earlier, they are finding ways around that. Hassabis' warning suggests that the competitive dynamics are shifting. If China is only months behind, that means they are close to achieving parity with the best US models. And once they achieve parity, the advantage shifts to whoever can deploy and scale AI applications most effectively. This has huge implications. If Chinese AI companies can match or exceed US capabilities, they'll dominate not just their domestic market, but potentially global markets where they can offer competitive or superior products at lower prices. It also raises questions about AI safety and governance. If the AI race becomes a sprint rather than a marathon, companies might cut corners on safety testing or alignment research to get to market faster. That's concerning when you're dealing with technology this powerful. From a geopolitical perspective, this intensifies the strategic competition around AI. Both countries see AI as critical to future economic and military power. Neither wants to fall behind. I think Hassabis is being honest here, and it's a wake-up call. The West can't assume they'll always lead in AI. China is incredibly motivated and well-resourced. The real question is whether the competition will be productive, pushing both sides to innovate faster, or destructive, leading to corner-cutting and increased risks. Alright, last story, and this one's wild. At this point, I don't think we're ever going to see GTA 6. Because the building where GTA 6 is being developed, it blew up. There was a fire. Now you might think I'm joking, but I'm absolutely not. This actually happened. Early Monday morning around 5 AM in Edinburgh, Scotland, fire crews were sent to the Rockstar North building because there was a fire. And this explosion happened in the boiler room at Rockstar North's office. Now basically, there are many Rockstar studios that are working combined on GTA 6. But this particular office, this particular Rockstar Studios, Rockstar North, is working on bringing GTA 6 to life. Because this is their main office through which GTA 6 can actually reach the public. And at this point, GTA 6 is creating its own GTA 6 missions. According to initial reports, no one was injured, but that was only because nobody was in the building at that time. Because it was 5 o'clock in the morning. Now that doesn't mean the explosion wasn't huge. This explosion destroyed everyone's workstations, but this explosion could have been even more catastrophic, where GTA 6's entire servers, even the physical assets that are being stored for GTA 6, the data storage that's being kept in the cloud, all of that could have been destroyed. And Rockstar would have been completely handicapped and wouldn't have been able to bring GTA 6 on time. Now, because of this explosion, it's possible that GTA 6 could be delayed even more. But the main question is, how many more things will we have to see before GTA 6? What do you think will happen before GTA 6 launches? Make sure to let me know in the comments. That's it for today's Tech Roundup. We covered Meta abandoning the metaverse after $70 billion in losses, Manus's meeting minutes feature, Black Forest Labs' 1-second image generation, OpenAI's $8 ChatGPT tier, the US-China AI chip wars, massive AI training infrastructure, and the GTA 6 boiler incident that wasn't an explosion. Which story surprised you most? What's next for the metaverse now that Meta is moving on? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next one.